Welcome, everyone. We're not going to talk about books today. Maybe we'll talk about cookbooks or something another day. I just want to thank you for being here and for your time today and welcome you to this space. Regardless of why you're here, what you're looking to get, you're in the right place. This is a place for us to talk about kind of the in-between things that come up in teaching kitchens and culinary medicine that isn't necessarily covered by a curriculum or our standard education. That still come up in practice. So if you don't know where to start, or if you do know where to start, if you've already started, wherever you are in that continuum, you're welcome here. And there's going to be something for you, and maybe you can share something as well. Maybe you're looking to just feel more confident in yourself as a culinary medicine facilitator. Maybe you're looking for more awareness, more perspective, more skills, more confidence. We welcome you here as well. And maybe you just want to hang out, get inspired, and kind of see what other people are up to, that you can, take some of that and apply it to your own practice or program. Thank you for being here, regardless of what that reason is. I'm going to share a little bit about myself. I won't go too into detail just because I do this every single time, and I know we have folks on here that have been here before, and they keep hearing the same things about me. But just a little background on myself. My name's Melanya. I have always been interested in culinary medicine. I've always been working in it as long as I've been an adult, I guess. But I kind of joke and say that I've been doing this my whole life in a sense. Because to me, nutrition, food, and cooking are all kind of the same thing. I never really saw a big differentiation in that. And when I became a dietitian, I found it very strange, actually, that we didn't involve cooking or food skills or decision making as much in the nutrition education piece, at least, kind of what I was taught by the book, so to speak, in clinical nutrition. So, um, when I started practicing, I just naturally bought that element in, and it kind of snowballed and grew. And here I am today, helping all of you lovely people and more um, do more of this. And that's really what I'm here for, is to see more culinary medicine, culinary nutrition, whatever you would prefer to call it, in practice and happening. So I've been working in culinary medicine. Oh, sorry, I just did something weird with my screen and it went away for a second. I've been in culinary medicine for about 13 years, most notably worked within the Department of Veterans Affairs, leading the creation of one of the largest teaching kitchens in the world at a single healthcare system. I've helped over 200 programs get started, served over 40,000 clients in my classes throughout my career, and about 500-ish dietitians and physicians when it comes to supporting them in their own programs and getting that off the ground. Now, I say program, this could also be practice. Maybe you're with an organization, maybe you're a solo practitioner. Regardless, there are ways to integrate this into what you're doing currently. And as we're going to talk about today more specifically, you don't necessarily need a kitchen to have a teaching kitchen. Um, so that's I find it's certainly a novelty point, and it's something we can leverage and use if we have access to that, but there's still a lot we can do without one, which is, yeah, what we'll go into today. My big why for being here, hosting these sessions, sharing what I know and my perspective is that it really is my dream to see this type of education, the interactive piece, become the standard of care. And I want it to be accessible to everyone everywhere, pretty much. So I want to help you, the dietitians, the culinary professionals, the physicians out there doing this work. I want to help you integrate this so you can continue doing this sustainably, as well as affect sustainable change in your clients and patients. And if I can be a part of helping you accomplish that, that lets me sleep at night. So that is my big why. And just so you kind of know where I'm coming from a little bit with this. All right. I always like to kick things off with a question. My favorite thing to do is ask questions. Actually, my second favorite thing to do is ask questions. My first favorite thing to do is answer questions, actually. Um, I really just like talking. But uh, question for you guys, and this is going to kick off our discussion just a little bit, or our thought work here, If you could only teach one thing in a culinary medicine session or a teaching kitchen session, one skill, one concept, one dish, one something, what would that be? Like if you had to pick one, maybe it's your most popular thing. Maybe it's the thing you come back to the most often. What would it be for you? Go ahead and think about that. And if you feel comfortable sharing, pop it in the chat. I always like to, I keep my chat window open so I can kind of see what you guys are up to there. Um, yeah, let me know. I was actually thinking about, I asked these questions and I'm like, I should probably have an answer for this question myself. Um, I think for me, it would be complex carbs. Just in teaching kitchens, in one-on-one practice, in general conversations with people, that is the thing that kind of comes up the most that people, I feel like is like an easy lift, but people are just don't know that much about. So that's my big one. What else you guys got? Oh my gosh, I skipped ahead. There we go. My mouse is very sensitive today. Oh, no, no takers. Or you're just thinking. Maybe you're thinking really hard. That's hard. Okay. You can't summarize it. You can't. You could throw a few out there if you have to pick like two or three. That's cool too. Or maybe a reframe. What do you like teaching people? What's your favorite thing to teach people? If picking one thing is too hard, what's your favorite? Knife skills feels like the most obvious, but once you're comfortable with a knife, you can do so much. Yep, yep. Ingredient substitutions. Yes, I do that one a lot too. Adults often get stuck on a recipe if they don't have one of the ingredients. Yeah, we all do that. That's actually very meta to our talk today, right? We get fixated on things being a certain way, right? And we have these perceived barriers to moving forward. We do that too in practice. That's why we're going to talk about how to deliver a teaching kitchen without a kitchen, because a lot of people get very fixed on having a kitchen and they don't move forward because of that. But that doesn't have to stop us, just like our clients and our patients. Just me, maybe you don't have this particular thing, but you can still move forward with the recipe without it. Yeah. What else we got? Oh, how to build flavor without relying on complicated recipes. That's a good one. Yes. Yes. Awesome, Leanne. Thank you. Nourish bowls, finding way to add more veggies. Yep, that is also a very that might have been my second pick next to complex carbs. More vegetables. Yeah, all of these are all great. Not that there was not really going to be a wrong answer, so that's 100% pass rate there. Um, so something I'd like to suggest here is that, or ask you, do you actually need a kitchen to teach these things? That would be my question. Yeah. Do you? Is there a way you could still accomplish your goal, talk about this concept, deliver education, shift perspectives, generate ideas without doing so in a kitchen? And now, just to be very clear, I'm not knocking kitchens. Kitchens are great, great settings, and context does matter. We will think of different things in different environments. We will feel different ways in different environments. So there certainly is still a place for kitchens, but I'd like to highlight that I would say just about everything in here you could still do without a kitchen if you get creative, you know. Knife skills, you can do that in a conference room. You really just need knives, a cutting board, and a flat surface, and I guess something to cut. You know, doesn't necessarily have to be in a kitchen. Ingredient substitutions, we just need a recipe. We don't even need it. We can just kind of think through. You could say, what did you make for dinner last night? Okay. What if you tried quinoa or half quinoa mixed with your white rice? Something like that, right? Layering flavor, that one I'd say maybe is a little bit more tricky, but you could even provide some sort of tasting experience where they try different things or they play around with different spice blends. Um, or you can go experiential with this. You ask them to think of a time when they had something of this flavor profile. What did they like about it? What you got, Renata? Shakshuka. Oh, that's a good one. You don't see that a lot. That's a good one. How different cultures have their own version. Yep, that's something you could also do. Maybe not making shakshuka. That does require some heating implement there. But you could still introduce that. You could still talk to someone and invite them to share their cultural experience with food and things that they like and what's important to them and work that in, right, to what you're going to educate them on. So anyway, I think I've made my point, so I'm going to press on. We don't necessarily need a kitchen to do what we want to do. So, culinary medicine, we have a definition for culinary medicine, but I'm going to propose this perspective on that is a field of practice that drives sustainable food-related behavior change. Sorry, I don't spell check my slides. Uh, through interactive education across the continuum of food exposure. That is how I conceptualize this practice. And what I mean by the continuum of food exposure, right? That's every point of contact in our interaction with food. So that could be just thinking about food, thinking about what's for dinner, making a food related decision, planning, meal prepping, shopping, deciding what to purchase, the actual act of cooking, and the experience of eating itself. There are so many different opportunities along this continuum where we can introduce, values-based, person-focused nutrition education to help change someone's perspectives and behaviors around food. A kitchen is one place to do that, but it's certainly not the only place to do that. And it doesn't have to hold us back. And this is a really nice way to approach it because maybe you don't have access to a kitchen all the time. Maybe you don't have access to a kitchen ever. Maybe you have limited access, right? So you could create a whole program, but only have one day actually be in the kitchen, and the rest of the time you're outside of it. Different ways we can configure this, but a kitchen is a lovely resource to have, but it certainly doesn't make or break it. It just enables access to another component of this continuum. But I would even say we don't have to hold ourselves back from that too. You can do quite a lot with a kitchen in a box, which I'll talk about a little bit later. So I want to present that the kitchen is just the setting, not necessarily the intervention. And keeping that in mind and not letting ourselves, not holding ourselves back from what could be just because we have certain expectations of how it should be. All right. So the kitchen is a big piece of this, but I think of it as the center of the access, and we have different things we can do, right? The kitchen is kind of what this revolves around. But like I said, as a continuum of food, there's different points around that we can still interact with people and change how they think or act or choose or behave around eating and food. Uh, so it's really not about the kitchen. It's about what you're teaching. It's about the curriculum. And it doesn't have to be formal curriculum. I'm just using that as a descriptive word. It's about the content you're teaching and how you're teaching it, your facilitation skills, right? Are you just sharing knowledge, or are you creating an engaging experience that gets people to think about their own interactions with food, their own choices, why they do what they do, or why they don't do what they don't do? That's part of what drives this change. And when I say driving change, yes, people are going to do something new maybe once or twice, but we want sustainable change, right? We want repeated behaviors. We want shifts that will influence how they eat and make food choices for the rest of their lives, right? That's how we really move the needle on health and reducing the burden of chronic disease. And you don't need a professional kitchen to run a powerful culinary medicine program. You can even just do so from your own home kitchen if you want. So you could do demonstrations or cook-alongs over Zoom, or not even have the kitchen at all. You could pop up in a conference room. Even if you just have an office with a desk, you can clean your desk off and use pretty much a flat surface. Any flat surface will do some sort of small demonstration. Knife skills are great for this because you don't need a lot to demonstrate knife skills. You need, like I said, a knife, a cutting board, maybe a bowl to put the stuff in, in a flat surface. You don't need any heating implements or cooking, like actual heat application cooking tools, appliances. You can do so with very simple, basic tools that travel very easily. And if you don't want to do knife skills, that's fine too. You can do a lot with a blender. They make little choppy things. I don't know what they're called. I think the slap chop, but those are very loud. Um, but they have like a hinged one now. You could do it with that. So you don't even need a knife if that. Sometimes there's policies that are get a little iffy about knives in strange places. Um, but yeah, the idea is you're not limited. Think of how else you could accomplish this. And that's kind of what we're going to talk through today, right? What do you actually need? Like bare minimum to get started. And then the rest, we can find ways to accomplish that. We can get creative. We can pull on resources that are already out there so we don't have to reinvent the wheel and see what we can build towards, right? Something to keep in mind is this doesn't have to be your end point. This can just be your starting point. I have to remind myself of that all the time too. I think too big sometimes, and I keep myself from getting started because I want it to be like this thing in my brain, this vision that I have. And I have to remind myself, yes, you can get there, Melania, but maybe that's not what it looks like when you get started. And that's okay. Every time you do this, naturally, you will likely improve upon it. I think we're all here because we care and we're looking to do things. I do find, I don't want to say there's a perfectionist streak in our profession, but there is certainly, I'd say in any health profession, right? There's pretty good attention to detail in the sense that, we're trained to have an eye for detail, to look for things, to have impeccable documentation, things like that. Um, and because of that, naturally, we are going to find the gaps and address things and have this natural process improvement. Whether it's structured or not, it just will happen. You will learn from the experience of doing it, and the next time you do it, it will be a little bit better. And even just doing that, you will still get farther than not doing anything because you don't think you have what you need to start. So yes, kitchens are nice to have, but certainly not a need. All right, there we go. So the minimum you need to start, and I kind of debated making this slide just because I even think this is negotiable, to be quite honest with you. I don't really think there's too many minimum requirements, but generally speaking, you need to know your client, your audience, your patient. You need to know who you're talking to, not just their chart, not just why they're there, medically, but get curious about them, engage with them, invite them to share about themselves and their food experiences and their history and involvement with cooking, their preferences, their behavior. See, behaviors is misspelled again. I just can't get that word right. Um, that's because Canva doesn't have that natural built-in spell check like Microsoft Word. So I'm just flying blind there. Um, so get curious, ask questions. If you don't know, that's okay. That's what asking questions is for. People generally like to be invited to share. They might not know what you need to know, in order to help them. So just ask things. And generally speaking, and I think this is a little bit of a practice too, just being a facilitator and an educator is you start to learn how to ask questions, right? Try to keep your own bias out of it. This is not the place for any type of judgment, no criticism. It's just curiosity. So that's what I term this is just get curious about your client and learn about them. If this is a bigger population, you could even do something like a survey or a focus group or a needs assessment. It can look something like that too. I'm just kind of breaking this down to the bare elements, and you can apply this however suits or befits your position within your own practice or organization. Um, so a kitchen, again, is a wonderful environment, but it can still be accomplished without one. I'm just going to repeat that over and over again today. But there still needs to be a space, but it doesn't have to be any certain kind of space, really. I guess a clean one. If we had to put a bare minimum, I would say a clean space. Um, but this could be a virtual space. It could be a Zoom call. This could be, you zooming in from your home kitchen, they're zooming in from their kitchen, or maybe not. Maybe it is just a plain Jane Zoom call. Maybe it's just an office with a desk. Maybe it's a conference room. Maybe it's a hotel conference room. Maybe it's a community center. There's lots of options for this. We just need a space to do it in. And then you kind of go from there. See what your space already has built in that you could leverage. And if it doesn't have anything, see what you need to bring. And I would say, keep it simple. We don't necessarily have to have all the bells and whistles to have the desired effect on our population and our clients and patients, right? I think sometimes we want things to look a certain way. We want them to look very polished and perfect and like a professional kitchen, which is nice. It does say things, but that's not what people are there for. They're not there to admire your space. They're not there. They really don't care as much as we think they care, I think, they're there to gain something. What are you offering that's of value to them that will help them with the problem they're dealing with right now? That's why they're there. Not because it's a pretty kitchen, not because you're a whiz. I mean, maybe because you're a whiz, but, remember why they're there, and you can probably solve that problem for them or part of that problem for them without a kitchen. Um, our kitchen is just another tool in our toolbox. It's not the end all be all. Equipment. Now, this one's also debatable, but it could be a recipe. That's it. You can just talk through the recipe. We have wonderful minds and imaginations, and I know people experience imagination differently, but there's still ways you can kind of work with this, right? Maybe it's a recipe they've done before, and you're talking through different modification suggestions. Bring in a recipe you like to make for dinner, and let's talk about it and see what we can tweak for you so it still tastes good, but it's a little bit more nutritious for you, or a little bit easier to prepare. Maybe they want to make this recipe, but they don't have very much time on weeknights, so they never do. It just kind of gets planned and never executed. Maybe have them bring those meal plans in and workshop them together. That could be an example of culinary medicine in practice. So we don't even need like physical bulky equipment. It could just be a piece of paper where we brainstorm different ideas. Sometimes I'll have people write down their common, like go-to kind of comfort or fallback meals, and then we workshop how to make the comfort meals slightly more balanced. Okay, yeah, you make grilled cheese when you have 0 spoons, no energy at the end of a long day. Cool. What can we add to that? Maybe we put some sliced tomatoes on it. Maybe we have grilled cheese and tomato soup. Maybe we opt for a whole grain bread to make the grilled cheese on. There's lots of options we can do. So that's still an easy fallback meal for them if that's what they need in their lifestyle and their setting, their environment, their obligations, right? We're not taking that away. We're enhancing it. And I can do that without a kitchen. We can just talk through it. But if you want to get more hands-on, you can bring things in. You can bring in a knife and a cutting board and do a little chopping demo, of maybe different knife cuts, or even just something I do very commonly is just how to hold a knife correctly and safely. Because I see that not being done well, and it just makes me cringe a little bit inside. But something like that, very simple. I don't even have to go into all the different kind of fancy cuts. Just some basics, just some basic use. You'd be surprised how many people, one, are uncomfortable holding a knife because they've never been formally taught to, and they know it's can be dangerous, right? Um, but even people who just won't do it because there's some trepidation there, right? So we can break some of that boundary down, show them how to handle it safely, or maybe even find a knife that fits their hand better. When I did in-person classes, I'd have a range of different sized chef knives because some people with smaller hands feel uncomfortable holding an 8-inch chef knife. Maybe they need a 6-inch, right? Just because their hand is smaller and it feels better to them, or they feel just intimidated by a big blade sometimes. Uh, that's part of this too, right? Those are some of the barriers to people cooking more and making better food decisions. If there is something intimidating them in the kitchen or preventing them from moving forward, that is absolutely something we can address with our culinary medicine expertise to help reduce that resistance to accomplishing the behavior. Yeah. Sometimes I'll even take an appliance in. I actually get this one a lot too. People get a new appliance as a gift and they're like, I don't know how to use it. I don't know what to do with this thing. So sometimes I'll ask them to bring it in and we play around with it, but together, right? It's kind of this guided exploration, and people are much less intimidated to using it once they kind of know how it works. They've seen it done. nothing's going to explode or jump out at them. Um, and they have a little bit of a base understanding of what it does and how to use it. And here's our piece, brainstorm with them how they would most likely use it in their current style of cooking, right? Don't just, give some I don't know, generic recommendations. Ask them, like, what do you like to make that's crispier, right? This is an air fryer, so that might be a really nice candidate to put in here while you, make the pasta on the stove or something like that. So even workshop that, because if you can get them thinking of a real, actual scenario they have been in before, um, that presented a challenge, and this is the solution to that, excuse me, they're going to have, again, much less resistance. It's less decisions they have to make on their own, less things they have to figure out. We're reducing that overwhelm, that kind of cognitive load around cooking and eating and deciding and making all these food related choices. That's, I find, a lot of times a big piece of the burden for people, not necessarily knowledge or skills. Yes, knowledge and skills as well, but also that decision making process. People get really stuck on that. So help them with that part, and they're going to be more likely to execute that in their lives. And then you can follow up with them and make it a whole thing, you know. And then I'd say the last piece after curiosity, space, equipment is your curriculum. What are you teaching them? What is the content? And again, it doesn't have to be formalized. This doesn't have to be, a beautifully packaged booklet or anything like that. It can be a one pager. It can just be in your head. Maybe it's what you go into the session, your objective for that session, your learning objective for that client, for that patient. And it can be several things. It could also just be one thing. What is the goal here? That they understand how to use an air fryer appropriately, safely, and in a way that is relevant to them and how they cook. That's our goal. Or maybe my goal is so they feel comfortable holding and using a knife so they can eat more veggies. Maybe my goal is that they have a more nutritionally balanced backup meal stack, because they often have low energy days or they have a busy family. They're running kids around all the time and they really do just not have time to go all out. So the fallback meals are most often what they end up doing. But that's going to help them move the needle on their own health. Any of these things you can make into a class even. This could be a one-on-one session, but this could also be a small group. So don't, I guess sometimes this can be, yeah, a one-off discussion if you're just seeing one-on-one clients. I don't really think there's any challenges to flip-flopping that around depending on who you serve and who you want to serve and what you want this to look like. You know, it's really the barriers or parameters you put on it. So just practice letting go of those for a while and see what comes up for you. All right, some ideas for you. I'm going to share some ideas on the next slide, but just to kind of get us thinking, some practical formats for this that I, excuse me, experienced, used, taught, or seen, or all of the above. Demonstration only. We can do a lot with a demonstration, right? It's kind of like show and tell. Um, I'm not the biggest fan of demonstration. I think they can be a good tool, but a lot of demonstrations miss the engagement piece. Things are pre-decided and the audience doesn't get as much of a say. They just have a reaction to it. So it's not necessarily as much give and take. It's kind of you get what you get and this is it. But if you're mindful about how you structure it, it's not worthless by any means. You can cook something, you can still invite them, to say like, how would you do this? What do you think? Maybe you give yourself a few little options to choose from and you invite their participation on some of those, or you ask, how would you use this? Or if you have leftovers, you say, what do you think we could do with the leftovers here? If you made this at home, what could this look like? Something like that. There's still ways to engage people, even in the demonstration. But you cook, they watch, maybe they taste. If it's virtual, then they're not going to get to taste unless you do a cook along. That could be another style. And this is, where we're harnessing maybe our own home kitchen. Excuse me. You could also still do this in like a conference style room with tables and a few basic equipment. I have I'm going to share a handout that I made, like a teaching kitchen in a box type thing. Um, and I have one version of that that is everything I need to do a demo. And I have a second version of it that is everything I need to teach a class of 16. So I actually have equipment for 16 people. I have 16 cutting boards, 16 bowls, 16 knives. Very basic, like it's not an elaborate setup, 16 mixing spoons. But all of that fits in a box. So I can do a hands-on class with 16 people as long as I have the table or counter space, right? And I just bring that with me and pop up wherever I am, or need to be or want to be. So you could do this as a demonstration, but you can still make this work without a kitchen and have it be hands-on, cook along style, or virtually, right? If they're cooking it along at their home kitchen, of course. You could design this to be maybe a tasting experience. Maybe you bring in some pre-made foods for them to try. Maybe you bring in some different herb blends and they kind of mix and match, and there's like a nice neutral base, like some potato wedges or something they could taste them on. Um, or some rice or something, so they can get a feel for the different flavor profiles and tweak them to be how they like them, right? You could do something like that. That's still very interactive, and it's a way of teaching people about how to build flavor and where flavor comes from. And part of this too is palate development, right? You're helping people explore what they like and what they prefer about foods, from the flavors to the textures to the temperatures. There's lots of preferences that folks have, but they may not have ever stopped to think about what theirs are. Sometimes they just eat the way they do because that's what their parents did, or that's how the people around them eat. And they can make it a little bit more personalized, and I find that helps a lot with efficacy, right? And kind of owning your choices and making informed choices about our health and being very much a participant in that. Yeah. Maybe you have like a mobile setup, like I was suggesting, like a teaching kitchen in a box, whether it's for you or for hands-on classes. Maybe you bring that single appliance to kind of show and tell and demonstrate a few things with it. Maybe your mobile setup is just a recipe or some sort of worksheet you've developed to help people make a meal planning system or modify their own recipes. Maybe you could have an idea list of easy modifications, and then they bring in their recipes and you all kind of group workshop it together. That's a really nice one too. Maybe it's just an office. Maybe it's a small demo in the room. Maybe you just brought in a food and you're going to show them a few different applications for that food. Or maybe you just kind of show and tell, talk about it, right? Even if you just, bring an avocado and crack open the avocado, have them look at it, taste it, touch it. We don't get this type of exposure as adults, right? A lot of us, I don't want to say a lot of us, but more often we're going to get that kind of exposure when we're kids in school. We'll do fun interactive stuff as we're exploring and learning about the world. But somewhere along the line, that kind of just stops and goes away. But we don't have to stop exploring. And part of some of those kind of unseen barriers, or cognitive pieces of this are lack of familiarity with something. So even bringing an avocado to allow them to become more familiar, or some I do this a lot with tofu too. That's another kind of mystery one. For a lot of folks, you're building connections with this food. And no, maybe they won't go home and make an avocado thing right away, but maybe they will, or maybe somewhere in the future, they'll have the opportunity to try an avocado dish and not be turned off by it this time. Maybe they'll be curious instead. Oh, I learned about that. Maybe I'll order it. Maybe I'll try that. You're still enhancing their experience of eating. You're helping them engage with this food more often, right? You're reducing that barrier to them trying something new. That could potentially be a wonderful part of their diet. So even without anything, just a show and tell piece of food, we can still have a big effect with people. We can still do a lot. It doesn't have to be in a kitchen, by any means. All right. So some more examples to kind of get this started. Oh, let me see the chat. We got a chat. Oh, we did a lot of that in Snap Ed. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Really anything. Yeah, you can just talk about stuff. Show and tell is great. With this garden season, everybody's garden is in production mode right now, that's a great time for it too, and that opens up more conversations. I grew this. You can grow this too if you want. People are getting more and more interested in gardening with the cost of food going up. So that might be a really nice outlet and opening as well. Yeah. So yeah, just, you don't have to jump straight into cooking. You can just start with a conversation. Even if you're in a kitchen, you can still start with a conversation. Um, Ask them about their environment. This is a good place to start. Food access, space, time, their kitchen setup. Do they like cooking? What style of cooking do they tend towards? Are they a from scratch person? Do they like put their music on and like it's a whole deal? Are they a very efficient kind of boom, boom, boom style? Are they assembly style? Do they not like to cook much or feel comfortable cooking, but they can put things together? There's different ways of doing it. Are they doing this by themselves? Are they doing this with a partner, with their kids? What foods have meaning for them, right? What are those comfort foods? What are the things they kind of lean on and fall back on? Gather some information about that. That's a really good place to, start a conversation and start identifying some gaps that could be easily closed or addressed with just a few suggestions or tweaks. Yeah. Maybe invite them to share a cooking or eating experience, something like what was, your favorite dish at a holiday, or what's your favorite thing that your mom would make you? What's your favorite thing to make and bring to a potluck? Favorite things are a good place to start because most people have a favorite or sorts. So we could invite them to just share an experience. What's a new recipe you've tried recently that you really liked or didn't like that you thought you would like and you were disappointed by it? That's another one people have some good experiences with, right? Oh, I saw this on TikTok and I tried it and it sucked. Well, okay, what sucked about it? What didn't you like? Maybe we could tweak it so you do like it and it's not all for nothing kind of there. So that could be something you talk about. Reflection journals are also really nice. I think of it as like a food mood journal, like write down how you're feeling, what's going on, but also what you're eating or what you're making or even what you're interested in. Maybe you eat something, but it's not what you wanted. Note that. Think about it. Pick it apart. It's not about tracking. It's about getting people in touch with why they're making the decisions they make and how they feel about them, right? Are you on autopilot or are you making very intentional choices? How do you feel before, during, and after eating? We have fullness. That's a physical sensation, but we also have satisfaction, which is an emotional sensation. And we want both. We want people to be both full and satisfied with what they're cooking and eating. That's part of the sustainability too, right? If there's something they don't like about it or something's lacking, it's not going to stick around very long. Yeah. And then, of course, right, I've already mentioned this one, so I won't spend too much time on it, but, review a recipe together, discuss it. It can be something they bring in. I always like that because then you're leading with them and their experience and it's something relevant, and important to them. Or you can just pull something, maybe you browse a cookbook together and you say, "Hey, let's look through this together. Let me know what jumps out at you." And we'll kind of talk through it and see what this could look like with you doing it in your own home kitchen. Or maybe we can take this because it sounds good and we can simplify it. So it's easier for you to do at home and you don't have to jump through as many hoops. Or maybe we can adapt it. Maybe it's a stovetop or an oven. We're going to make it work for your air fryer. So, you already know how to use that. It won't be too hard to just toss this in the air fryer basket. Something like that. That can do it. You know, it doesn't have to happen in a kitchen. It's the content. It's you driving this discussion. You are still creating an experience that changes how they think and act and interact with food. All right. That's the end of my spiel for the most part, but take home is don't underestimate yourself. Regardless of the setting, your clients are coming to you as the food and nutrition expert, and they're there to learn from you. You're going to bring that value regardless of where you're doing this and what tools you have available. Um, you'll find a way to help them, I'm sure of it. And a discussion that provides ideas, solutions, and new perspectives can be just as effective as a hands-on class, right? Part of it is the skills, but there's so many different pieces and layers of these decisions in our life that it doesn't just have to happen in a kitchen. It doesn't just have to be a hands-on thing. It can be it can be a thought work exercise. It could be a perspective exercise. It can just be a brainstorming session, and that can help people over these humps. The kitchen is just the setting. You're the one that brings the intervention to it. So remember that. Yeah. We'll get to a question in just a little bit. I wanted to share a resource I whipped up for you guys. I didn't whip it up. I kind of added to one that I already had. It's a teaching kitchen in a box, just walking you through kind of some basic equipment. And again, this is not comprehensive. You don't need to have all these things in your box. Just giving you some ideas. Oh, thanks, Kate. Oh, thanks for being here, Kate. I didn't see you in there. Oh, I'll see you soon at the TKCRC. Um, all right. Just a few basic pieces for you to have on hand. And again, you can mix and match depending on where you're planning to set up shop, what you're comfortable with, right? If you don't want to do knife skills, don't do knife skills. You could just have a bowl and a little chopper thing. I should get one so I can demonstrate what I'm what I'm trying to say. I think you guys know what I mean. I watch like Instagram videos and reels on these things. Just watching people chop is like an ASMR. Um, but you could get one of those, right? And do a little demo. Maybe you just bring your favorite cookbook, and that could be your thing, your speaking piece, the thing that provides content and ideas from which to base a conversation or a discussion off of. I also have a list. This is just one page. It's a two-pager or front and back. I also have some links to other resources like a recipe library, the toolkit with the TKC, um, some other, or actually, it's not the toolkits, their free resource section. The toolkit's in there, but they have some PowerPoints and guides. Just anyone can access to get started. But some curriculum, just so you don't have to feel like you need to reinvent the wheel. There's plenty of content, handouts, recipes, guides out there already. I think it's just hiding in the weeds a little bit. So I pulled a few of those out for you so you can get some ideas, get something going. And like I said, if you want to take this and just multiply it times like 8 or 10 or 12, you can very easily still fit a lot of that stuff in one kind of like, plastic tote. Um, and just let it travel with you. Yeah, let it travel with you and pop up wherever you need to pop up. Yeah. If you want to get a little more elaborate, you could even get a plug-in burner, bring an extension cord just in case and do things that way. But there really is so much you can do without heating. We don't need that. It's nice. It's nice to have for sure. And we can teach more and different things with it. But you can make dips, you can make salsas, you can make desserts, you can make salads, sandwiches, wraps. There's so many things we can still make. Lots of snacky type foods like no bake granola bars or something. A lot we can make without a stove or an oven or anything like that. So, yeah, Leanne has popped a link to that in the folder. I'm going to send it out via email with today's replay as well, just in case you can grab it there too. Yeah. And if you have other ideas, let me know. I'm also working on just a master idea list of teaching kitchens without a kitchen kind of thing. I just didn't get it done in time for today's call. So that might be coming out shortly as well. And then I do have something exciting to share. I'm not sure when it will be ready, but it's something I'm starting to work on, is I'm starting to put together a curriculum library for culinary medicine practitioners. And it'll be individual classes you can mix and match to create a series if you would like. Or just pull a one off, whatever you want to do. And it'll come with a curriculum guide as a facilitator. It'll also come with a prep sheet for what you need to get ready, a suggested timeline. It'll also include a prep sheet for your patient or client if this is a cook along, so they know what to be prepared for. Some suggestions for follow-up, as well as a few select recipes to go with that. So it'll be pretty much one and done, one-stop shop, but designed to be flexible so you can still choose like out of 3 recipes which one you want to do and feel most comfortable with. Yeah. So I'm very excited. I've had a few requests for that recently, and I'm like, this is something I should just package and offer up to folks. So it'll come at some point, hopefully this year. It'll be this year. Don't worry. I just don't exactly know when. All right. And then I like to have little quotes just to kind of, I don't know, tie everything into the real world, I guess, or not the real world as it were, but a reminder that your assumptions are your windows on the world. Scrub them off every once in a while or the light won't come in, right? Let's not let our own expectations and biases hold us back necessarily. We might think it has to be one way, but let's see if there's another way to do it. And this is Isaac Asimov. So I don't know if you're science fiction people out there, but he is one of the greats. All right. I think that's all I was going to talk about this too. Oh, I got so much jammed into today's session. I'm getting there, guys. Real quick plug for my Culinary Medicine Mastermind Day. We had a fantastic time in July. This is a 4-hour workshop for dietitians and physicians, primarily, anyone really working in culinary medicine, where we apply my signature infused framework, a 6 principle methodology for designing culinary medicine experiences that drive sustainable behavior change, as well as being sustainable to provide themselves. So we're keeping sustainability of behaviors in mind, but also, your ability to continue to deliver this. So designing it with your strengths, your assets, your resources within your organization, whatever that looks like for you. And we'll kind of walk through a program audit and a worksheet to apply this framework to your teaching kitchen. So you come out on the other side, excuse me, with a working understanding of the framework, and you've identified pretty much where the gaps are in your current offering or your potential offering. This could also be done to a hypothetical situation, so you have your starting points laid out before you. And you have a very clear roadmap, whether you're just launching this or it's something you've been running for a while, you just want to take it to the next level or improve something or change something. You'll get a roadmap from that audit of what to do next to achieve those goals. So it was an exciting time. I really love doing it. So I'm going to offer this one again in November 7th to be precise. That's a Saturday. It'll be from noon to 4. I didn't put that on here. I forgot, but that's what it will be. If you are particularly interested in this, you can get on my wait list here. It's not really a wait list. It's just, a collection of people who I know are interested. So I'll give you first dibs when I open it, just because spots will be limited. So if you would like to learn more about that or have first dibs at a spot, scan that QR code. Leanne has also popped a link to that wait list in the chat. I will, of course, still send this out over email, so you'll learn about it there too. But when it fills up, it fills up. I don't want to have too many folks in here just because I do help people workshop their individual scenarios a little bit. And if there's too many people, I can't get it through it all in 4 hours. So, all right. Okay, finally, questions or thoughts or commentary that came up for you during today's session. I think we still have most of the folks here. Yeah, Kate had to jump. Oh, it was good that she showed up though. Whoops. Sorry. I have this little roller thing on my mouse and I just touch it sometimes and my slides jump around. Anything come up for you guys? Any like aha moments or like, oh, that's a good idea. I should do that. Or devil's advocate. Oh, that's a good idea, but lots of good ideas. Thanks, Renata. That was me fishing a little, just a little bit. No, lots of good ideas. All right. I'll leave it there. If you're typing away, I'll give you just a second. No rush. I'll hang out for a few more minutes, but thank you guys for joining today. Oh, you're welcome, Helen. Thanks for joining. I like how we can engage without actually cooking. Yes. Yes, that's actually just made me, the way you said that, Renata, made me think of something else. And this is part of that culinary medicine mastermind day I just talked about. We also want to consider our ability to keep showing up. I talk about this I sprinkle this into a lot of infused sessions, like having a full-blown teaching kitchen is a lot of work. There's a lot of organizational pieces, there's a lot of perspectives, there's a lot of logistics. It takes a lot of energy to produce and show up for that. So designing teaching kitchen programs or practices with your own capacity and energy in mind is part of this sustainability equation. We want to be able to keep doing this. I don't want culinary medicine to just be this fad that has a great idea and fizzles out because nobody has any energy or mojo, you know. Um, we need to be able to keep showing up for this and keep perpetuating this type of care and approach. And part of that is finding other ways to do it, right? That one we can, become more prevalent because a kitchen's not necessarily required. But two, maybe this is good for us too. So we can have phases where we do more hands-on stuff in a kitchen, but also phases or parts of our program that aren't. So it doesn't require quite as much input from us. I do also think that's important. And that's coming from someone who, like I said, did this for 13 years, but low key got a little burned out, and is coming back with it, but from a more sustainable perspective. Yeah. What we got here, Morgan? A great reminder to start off classes with a question. Yeah. In each session that asks folks for barriers and challenges. Yes. Yes. Let them tell you what they need. You don't have to guess. Let them tell you. There are so many for them to choose from, I bet. Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great one. Exactly. Classes or even just sessions, right? Maybe it's not even a cooking class. Maybe you're doing just a nutrition education talk or a webinar or something, right? Or maybe it's just in a one-on-one. You could still start off with a question. Yeah. I think most of us do, but more questions maybe. Yeah. All right, guys. Wow, I'm done on time today. I'm so proud of myself. Um, I'll hang out for just a little bit. Any other questions or anything? And if not, nothing comes through, we can go ahead and wrap up and you get 4 minutes of your day back. Yeah, I think people are already hopping off. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, I will hopefully see some of you next month. We have our next Infuse call is September 15th. I'm going to be talking about pretty much starting a program 101. So the bones and considerations, I should say, of starting a teaching kitchen offering, whether it's a class, a whole program, a singular session for your clients, uh, just going through the different, I don't want to say barriers, the different things you should know about and things to consider. There's really no right or wrong because this can be a very flexible application, but there are certain things to be accounted for, like logistics, safety, skill level, access, stuff like that, comfort, um, lighting, little things like that. So we'll kind of walk through all of those considerations together and see what comes up. Yeah. But in the meantime, have a great rest of your month. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you around. Bye, everyone.